Welcome to the Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Berk, a show about ancient coins from the viewpoint of a seasoned professional with nearly 30 years' experience. Here's Aaron Berk and Mike Nottleman on the Ancient Coin Podcast.
And the sound of whatever that is means it is time once again for the Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Berk. I'm Mike Nottleman.
I'm Aaron Berk.
And on today's show, auction. I've gone to the East Coast. Auction season is in full swing. We have a ton of stuff to go over, as well as an educational segment. We have a Doofus purchase, and we have a pearl of wisdom to add to your necklace of knowledge. So, why don't we get started with old business and tell us what you got, Aaron?
So last episode, which was 68, we're now in 69, believe it or not, almost at 70. We reviewed the Münz Zentrum Heinz Müller auction 204, which was on September 17th and 18th. So yes, we've been gone a little while, guys, but we're back. I hope you didn't miss us too badly. Sometimes life just gets in the way.
That's exactly right.
Yep. So anyway, let's review this real quick here. We got lot 34, which is the Olbia Dolphins, and there was 4 of them with an inscribed one. And if you remember, Mike, last time we did in episode 68, we did a whole educational on the Olbia.
Yes, we did.
These actually went pretty inexpensively. So 4 of them at 95 euros. That's most of the auction houses, guys, in Coin Archives. I'm not sure about AC Search, but they do not include the prices realized. My guess that's true for AC Search as well. The only ones that actually include the prices realized that I'm aware of on Coin Archives and AC Search is Heritage, Stacks, and Goldberg. I don't think anybody else does. So, so always keep that price with a grain of salt, because it's obviously just a hammer price. Doesn't include the buyer's fees, which can be up to 23.5%, 22.5%, and can also, you also have to figure in the exchange rate. So right. If you hover over that 95 euros, Mike, on the screen there, it actually will give you the currency breakdown.
$12 right now,
which is kind of cool. So you can always do that as well.
That's nice.
And so actually pretty inexpensive for that little group there. And so somebody, in my opinion, got a decent deal, because I know, like, for instance, the signed one, you could probably get $100 for that. So that's probably worth a whole lot. So so that was pretty good. So so congrats to that buyer.
Well bought.
Lot 67, the Ptolemy the Third. This is one of the large bronzes, 42 millimeters. So when they say AE 42, that's the denomination, meaning it's a bronze coin, and it's of 42 millimeters. That's one of the largest ones you'll see. I don't think they get too much bigger, maybe up to 43 or 44. This one about 600 euros. That was pretty inexpensive. There could have been some smoothing in there. It was hard to say, but I think that was pretty fair price again, very reasonable. And that's why it's worth looking at some of these smaller auctions, because you can get a deal. And especially right now, guys, because all of the massive auction houses, the NACs, the CNGs, the Kunkers, the Gorny and Mosches, the Loy, the Nomos, they're all coming out with their sales right now for their fall extravaganza. And so a lot of these smaller auction houses are going to be lost in the shuffle. And so it may be a good opportunity to really look at some of those smaller auctions, because you're going to get some deals. I guarantee it. You just have to be diligent about it. And I know it's not easy, because there's a lot of crappy auctions out there with low quality material.
But the volume of stuff out there is what presents all the opportunities.
It's massive. So again, good price for that. Lot 131, the Serrated Republican, with Hercules fighting the Nemean lion, 250 euros. That's retail. So I think that was exactly what it's worth. It probably bought a little bit more than retail after you get the exchange and the prices and the buyer's premium in there. But still a nice coin. Not a doofus by any means, but it brought exactly what it should have brought. So good pickup. Lot 230, the last one. This is the Hadrian Sestertius with the Galley reverse, which I love these. 900 euros. I think that again is about what it's worth. If you factor in all the, again, buyer's fees and exchange rate, you're talking close to probably $1,200-$1,400, somewhere in that range. And so I think that's about what it's worth. And so not a great deal, but
Nice coin, though.
but a very nice coin. A little weak on the obverse, but I would call that the non-money side. The reverse of this coin, the Galley side, is the money side. So if you're into collecting nautical material, this is right up your alley. So that was the review of the Münz Zentrum Heinz Müller auction 204 sale from September 17th, 18th, 2025. So again, lots of auctions coming up, and it's hard to profile all of them, but I'm going to do it based on what's coming up next. And so the next big auction coming up is Gorny and Mosch, and they are October 14th and 15th. So right around the corner here. You've got about 10 days, 10 days left. And they've got a really nice sale, actually. Some really good coins in here. Definitely worth taking a look at. And Gorny and Mosch, as we profiled them before, they're a very old company, very well respected in Munich, and do a very good job. So let's look at a few pieces here. Lot 1. I love this coin. So this is minted in Raoul's in France, and this is called wheel money. And this is made out of bronze, and it's dated 2nd to 1st century BC. And this is kind of like a proto-currency, essentially, is what they like. That's kind of the category of it. And these are from the Gaulish tribes of that region in France. And I just love anything like this that doesn't look like money but is money.
Yeah,
it
has some other use as well, perhaps.
Perhaps
it looks like it does.
Perhaps. But also you got to remember, you're coming out of the early on, in much earlier, you've got the Bronze Age where bronze and copper ore was extremely important, was traded for money. So we go back to all the way to that oxhide that we previewed in C&G a couple of years ago, or last year, I think, and maybe it was 2 years ago now, where it was just copper and it looked like oxhide, and it weighed like 100 pounds, and that was traded as currency to move wealth around. And so copper still, in all its shapes and sizes, was still considered valuable and was considered money. So especially if you were a tribe and didn't have gold or silver at your disposal, this kind of material was perfect.
It was the game in town.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you didn't have access to gold or silver, that was it.
Right. And, obviously the wheel was extremely important for many different reasons. And so here we go. So beautiful piece. I really love this thing. And we'll have to see. It's already up to 1,400 euros. So it's obviously going to go very strong. Yeah. It's a unique piece. I've never seen, I'm sure there's ones like it out there, but this one with the spokes and everything and the kind of the double tread, I think it's very, very cool.
I almost can't wait for the recap on it. It's like, okay, so I mean, we could play a little game and say, where do you think it's going to end up?
Well, I think it's going to be over 2,000.
That was the number in my head. Was I was going to set the over under at 2,000. I think that's kind of like,
and I wouldn't be surprised, and I wouldn't be, a lot of this Gaulish and whether it's French or German tribes material, Celtic material goes really, really strong in Europe, especially in Germany and France. Oh. And so, this is their people,
right? From the that's their history.
Right? So, so this generally goes should go very, very strong. So I wouldn't be surprised if it went for 2,500 or over, or maybe it's priced out already. I don't really know. We'll find out. Sometimes when you have something that's already over the estimate before the auction begins, that kind of is where it may just stop right there because people are like, well, I'm not going to get it. So, and that might be the rationale for some bidders to say, well, I want to bid it up high now. I have much more to go, but I want to make sure that I scare enough bidders off at the beginning so they won't show up. And
well, I know that
so,
we do enough of a recap every show that make a note of this one for next time that says that Mike said over under 2,000.
right. And I'm saying I'll say 2,500.
Okay.
So, in that range. So, okay. So anyway, next lot 83. This is the Brutium Rhegium. And this is Rhegium basically was in Calabria in southern Italy. It's located at the toe of the Italian peninsula, directly across from Sicily. So just to kind of give you a framework of where that is. And I brought this up because I think this is a coin you do not bid on, guys. And I say that because of the fact that the bottom of the lion's mouth is off plan. The reverse of Apollo is got a lot of pit marks on the face. These come very, very nice.
Maybe it's a young man. Maybe he has acne.
Maybe. I don't think too many gods have acne, but it's possible. I would hate to hate to put the cream on that a god would have to use. But in any case, so I think that this is a coin you have to pass on. Honestly, I don't see this coin. Like I would never, as a dealer, want to own this coin unless I could own it for like $2,500, and maybe I would get 3,500 out of it. They have it estimated at $5,000 euros. I just don't see that as a coin I'd ever want to own.
Especially now for $6,000 plus.
Yeah, I think that they estimated it way too high. I think they should have estimated it at 2,500, and they would have had a really good chance of selling it. So if they sell it, it's going to either not sell or it's going to sell at estimate or below. Anybody who pays over that is making a mistake. So
clearly the market reflects what you think, because as of right now, there are no pre-bids for it. None.
Right. Because it's estimated too high. So I thought that this was a good example to show, because guys, always go and do your research. Look at, if you can't afford Coin Archives, the full pro view, go to AC Search. It's much cheaper. You can basically pull up a lot of the same information. You can see that a lot of these come up regularly, and you can get a really great one for $7,500, $8,500 all in. So you can spend up to $12,000, $15,000, but I don't think it's really necessary. I think you can get one for $75,000, $8,000 fairly. That's all there. Maybe a little bit of problems here or there, but nothing major like this. This, to me, the obverse is not nice. The reverse is not nice, especially if you go back and look at what the full lion's face would look like if it was all there with the bottom of the mouth. So so I thought this was a good example to show what not to buy or why to pass on something, even if it's something that you are desiring or wanting.
Yeah, I think that there's value in seeing what you shouldn't buy almost as much as there is what you should.
Yep. So that takes us to lot number 101. This is a fantastic coin. This is a Sicily Katana, so minted in between 410 and 405 BC. And if you look, you'll see the victory on the obverse crowning the charioteer. The victory has a little plaque, and on that plaque, it's engraved with Euainetos' name. So this is actually a signed die by Euainetos, the same Euainetos that does the decadrams of Syracuse. So, and what's really cool is in front of the Apollo head, you have this this kind of rope with knots and a bell. And that's actually a ritual object. It's probably used in the temple or processions of Apollo, the cult of Apollo, and it could mark the sacred space or time. And the 4 knots may suggest some ceremonial significance, perhaps indicating a connection to a local festival or rite in Catania. So all of these things that are added to coins, they all have meaning. And even if though you kind of might miss it, right behind Apollo's head, you see a little shrimp that's swimming right there. Yep, that's a little shrimp. So to show, probably part of their export, what they consumed. So very, very important for their coinage. So remember, these are all propaganda. They were meant to travel, and so they were never indigenous. Coins were never indigenous to the places where they were made. They were spread all over the ancient world for the most part. So it's really just the local bronze coins that didn't move as frequently, but gold and silver were made to travel. So that's to say that one country owns it is really asinine. Makes no sense whatsoever, because when they made it, had no intentions of it ever to stay there. It was only meant for travel. So,
and this is
fantastic coin.
This is another coin that has no current bid, and
it's a high estimate. It's a high estimate again.
High minimum.
Yep, I would have probably estimated this at 15. I think that would have made more sense. But coins like this can bring 30, 35,000. So it's not out of it's not out of place. You also have to remember some of the really important coins like this. I would consider this a very important coin in their auction. They typically, people don't leave pre-bids. They usually show up and bid. When we used to run our Gemini sales, all of our best coins would have no bids, and they would always sell. Generally speaking,
well, no,
because people didn't
think
want to leave the bids.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question that the coin would sell. I'm just saying that this is another one though that has no pre-bid. I think it is because the really super high minimum bid.
Sure.
I mean, 20 grand, they wouldn't accept 15, which is what you think is is the price on the coin. So,
well, no, I think that 15 would be the low price to draw people in, and it would be a cheap estimate, or a cheap reserve, I should say. But it could be that Gorny and Mosch was given this coin and they had a high reserve, and so sometimes the auction house is kind of pigeon-toed by what they can or cannot do based on what the consignor over the consignor's restraints,
yes,
or wishes. Yes.
I mean, maybe the consignor is like, I really want 30 grand for it. So it's like they're trying to dress it up as best they can to get it there.
Yep. So that brings us to lot number 732. And this is the Labienus Denarius.
Hold on a second. So I think I had a problem with this one. Give me a second. 732. That's.
You can also just put it in the fine spot there too.
I got it.
Okay, cool. Cool.
Yeah. So I was looking at the wrong thing. That's all.
Got it. So this is the Labienus Denarius. These are extremely rare. They do come up in silver more often than gold, and gold are very, very expensive. But Labienus, he actually fought beside Brutus and Cassius in the war between Mark Antony and Octavian, and he actually teamed up with the Parthians under King Orodes II in 42 BC before the Battle of Philippia, to request help. And then in 40 BC, he invaded Syria and Asia, and he defeated the Roman forces there. And later on, Labienus was assassinated or put to death in around 39 BC. And so you have him, obviously they're going to use the horse because he used cavalry from the Parthians. And so and then you can see it's actually countermarked on his cheek, which showed that this coin actually did travel as well.
That was going to be my first question: are those counter or job marks?
That's a countermark. That's a countermark. So these are often faked, but this one's not. This is real. And And generally they go for anywhere between 15 and 25,000 and up. The gold ones go for, the last gold one I know of went in a Goldberg sale at a New York sale maybe 4 years ago, and it brought $1 million, and it was all scratched up on the reverse.
Wow.
So extremely rare guy. If you collect, if you have the means and you're like an Eidmar guy, you have to have this guy, because this is all part of that whole situation with the wars. And extremely important guy, and so important that he was able to get coins minted while being under the help of the Parthians, of all people. So pretty crazy in that regard. So very, very cool. It's nice to see this coin come up in a Gorny and Mosch sale. Normally you'd see these in an NAC sale or a C&G sale. So it's kind of cool to see it in a Gorny and Mosch sale. And I think it didn't have a pedigree too. I can't read it off your screen. I think the pedigree was yep, it was actually X C&G from Triton 2023.
2023.
So as I just said, they normally are in a Triton or in a NAC sale, and I was correct. So in thinking that
he's not lying, folks.
No. And I think it only brought like 15,000 in the Triton sale, if I'm remembering right. So it didn't sell for a ton back then. So might be an opportunity. It's possible. So anyway, check out the Gorny and Mosch sale. You still have some time, October 14th and 15th, and give it a shot. So that's going to bring us to our doofus, which is less of a doofus and more of a be more thorough, guys, when you do your research. So if you want to bring up that doofus purchase. Okay, so this sold.
This sold for $12,000. No, it's C&G.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So this sold in C&G, right. Okay. So, and it's a rare coin. You would think that in 2020, this coin sold for 28,000 Swiss francs. And the reason why they put the hammer price in there is to draw attention to it, so people would think, oh, I got an amazing deal, right? Okay, but look closer. And they say it right there. If you look, it says that the coin is repaired. And if you look at 7 o'clock, between, I would say, 8 o'clock and 6 o'clock, you can see there's a line that goes right there. Yep.
There.
And you can see the corresponding line on the reverse as well. So the coin broke. And if you go to NAC auction 20 from 2020, the coin is not broke. So this broke after that sale. And so it's crystallized, and the coin just broke. It probably broken. My guess is it broke in the mail. It's possible, or broke after the fact. I mean, who knows? I'm just speculating anyway. Doesn't really matter. So, but I don't even know if this coin is worth 12,000. And I think that the person probably didn't look it up to see, didn't have a clue. And, if I had this coin, I would have sold it for, probably the estimate, 7,500. I think it's a broken coin. So it's a lot harder to get, a strong price for it. And obviously it brought really crazy money in, and it is a rare coin. It's a very rare coin, because it actually is a mix. It's what they call a, I forget the name of it. Basically when multiple cities do joint coinage together. And so this is kind of what this is. And so and so they listed the hammer price saying, hey, this sold for huge money back in 2020 for 28,000 Swiss francs. That doesn't include the buyer's fees. And so you're talking like what, $34,000. And here somebody got it for 12,000. So you think, oh, I got a great deal on it. Well, I don't know if they got a great deal. It's a broken coin.
Right.
So it's always going to be a very difficult coin to sell. When this person goes back to sell it in auction, it may only bring $5,000 the next time. because people are going to be maybe more critical about it at the time. So they write in there repaired, but it's kind of it's within the listing there. It could have been missed, and so
it's pretty clear. I mean, the word repaired is right there, right next to the grade. So I can't fault them at all.
And honestly, maybe two people thought, I don't care, it's repaired. I need this coin for my collection, and so I'm going to pay whatever. So as long as it's under 15,000, I'm gonna buy it. Right. So and that was the rationale behind it. I personally don't think it's worth that. So like I said, it's not really necessarily a doofus. It's more of just, guys, make sure you do your research, make sure you go back to the coin that it sold for. And this wasn't that long ago, it's 5 years ago. So you can kind of always, if the coin has sold in the last 5 years, I think always go back to see what it sold for last time, because it's not that long ago and prices have not changed that dramatically since 2020. Prices were really strong in 2020. They're still very, very strong. I don't think things have changed that much. There hasn't been that much of a dip in the market. So I think you can always take the last price that it sold for with some, what's the word I'm looking for? Some guarantee of what it may bring again, or within that. Yeah, it's an indication. It's to know that the range you want to be in. But in this situation, say, well, it's sold for 28,000. Maybe I want to pay half. Okay, well, half is 15,000. So then, okay, it's sold for 12. But again, I don't know if I'd want to own this at 12,000 plus the 22.5%. So, you're talking 14,000 plus, right? So, it's, yeah. Anyway, so it's more just, guys, do your research, and this is the kind of thing, like I wanted to see immediately. I want to see, did it really sell for 28,000? So make sure that the auction house didn't make a mistake. They didn't make a mistake, and then I realized, oh, look, it's not broken, and so it made sense why it sold for less this time, but I don't think it sold for less enough. So, but luckily, whoever owned the coin before and broke it, they're probably happy to be out of it. And so, maybe at half of what they bought it for.
Yeah.
So, so in any case, where are we at now? Oh, so that's going to bring us to our educational section. Yeah, I'm really excited about this one, guys. I've been thinking about this one for a while.
Yes.
So I'm going to do it a little. Yeah. So I'm going to do it a little bit differently than I'll wait for Mike to bring that up, and then I'll expand it out for him.
It's there. You just got to share it, and then.
Oh, I have to share. No, you're going to share it, and then I will expand it for you.
Okay.
Yeah,
I will share it.
Yeah, I'll let you do it. And then I will do that. There we go. Now you can control it, and I'll talk. So, so this is less of an educational and more of a platform for me to speak on why I think we should legalize ancient coin and artifacts in source countries. And so this is obviously very controversial. I know I'm mainly talking to the choir here. Most of you also agree with this as well, but I'm going to explain why laws and regulations that have happened since 2000 in our country, at least, and it's around the world because it's kind of been a trend that's happened around the world, and how actually it's raised the prices of coins and artifacts and created more looting, not less looting. And so, and the advantages of where it works in some source countries that have legalized. You can see the pot on the right. That's kind of how they'll find a large hoard in a pot like that. And they're generally buried not on sites. They're buried out in the fields with nothing around it. So because that was their bank. And so you're not going to bury it by your house. You're going to bury it far out into the country where nobody knows where it's at. Then you die and they don't find it for 2,000 years. And that's how they find big hordes of coins. So to say that you're going to be disturbing a site is kind of silly, because that's not generally the case. It is with antiquities sometimes, because obviously those are usually in tombs or in homes and places like that. But when it comes to hiding money, you're not going to go hide your vases or your sculpture. That's going to be where you live. So that's a little bit different than coins. So I think it's a little easier to talk about coins and the ownership of coins and the fact that they traveled in ancient times and all of that argument and who owns it and all that. But I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about the fact that source countries should legalize it because they're fighting the black trade, and it's a losing battle. They will never win this battle, because the more laws and regulations you create, the more people break the law. Just the nature of things.
Can I make a quick point?
Sure.
I think one of the things that kind of skews the lawmakers' beliefs or the lawmakers' points of view is an ignorance of history. They just don't understand how things worked. They find, they look at this picture and they're like, well, that's a vase. It's a vase. It was in somebody's home. It obviously came from, and they don't understand the history of how the coins traveled, what they were made for, and those are the reasons that they should be legal. It's not and it's just a matter of doing a little bit more research, educating yourself just a little bit more so that you can understand exactly what it is that you're dealing with, and then I think you could be fairer to everybody else.
Absolutely. And great point. And also the fact is that most of the general public, including politicians outside of source countries, think these things are worth a lot of money. They are not always worth a lot of money. And so that's harder. But in the source countries, they do know that the prices of these things. They do know that these things are not found on sites. They know this, but they just don't care. And it's mostly, this is a fight. And I understand the archaeologist point of view. They want to know where things are found. And so the best way, it's kind of feel like, when they came out with Web 2.0, Web 2.0 basically was to have regular individuals help you build a system. And so you need to have the public help and assist in finding things legally. And this is, this is what England has done, and to some point Israel, but it's kind of changed a little bit. But in any case, so let's just go back and let's look at the values of things. So if you want to go to the next slide, Mike.
It's going to be a better place if you put an infrastructure in place on which to deal with it.
So go to the next slide. So let's just look at this. Okay, so there's on the left, we have the gold Eidmar with the fake pedigree. That was what got Roma put away for good, because all of that pedigree right there from the collection of the Baron, that's what that statement right there is what got Richard Beale arrested and what closed down Roma. And the coin on the right is the gold Eidmar with the hole. That one has a pedigree going back to before 1970. It was actually known to have been brought to the British Museum in the mid 30s, but it was first published in 53. And it was on display at the British Museum from 2010 to 2021. And if you look at the prices, the Roma piece brought $4.2 million, which broke the record for the most expensive ancient coin at the time. Now it's been rebroke by the facing Pantocopane, which brought $6 million, which is good. So the hold one in NAC 27 in 2004, my father actually bought for Barry Fierstein for 120,000 Swiss francs. Okay. Then in NAC 42, when Barry Fierstein sold his collection, NAC got, just 4 years later, got 230,000 Swiss francs for the coin. And then in NAC 132 in May of 2022, I bought the coin for my client for 2.2 million Swiss francs. That's a 1,733.33% increase in price between 2004 and 2022. Also, the fact is that if you look at when the 2020 example sold, the tainted gold Eidmar, that was in 2020, and the owner of the hold one took it off display right after that auction because he saw the prices go crazy and ended up selling it for, he bought it for 230,000 Swiss francs and got 2.2 million. So, this is what drew this coin out of the British Museum, was because of that sale and the monster price that it brought. There's only 3 of these in existence. And now the hold one, which my client has, is the only one in private hands. So it's probably worth more, because when my client bought it, the tainted one was still out in the market. It had not been confiscated yet. And so, a lot of clients didn't want to buy this coin because it had a hole, and now they can't own any unless a new one comes onto the market, which then we'll know that it's probably a new find again. So, so this is the only one with a pedigree that matters. Even the one that sold, that the or the German museum has, was bought from NFA in the 90s. So that doesn't even have a pre-1970 pedigree. This is the only one with a pre-70 pedigree. So if we go to the next slide, we can see again. So the coin on the left, this is a silver Eidmar, and it has, you can see the long pedigree it has, going all the way back to 1913. And Loy sold this coin in 2002. It has a banker's mark on the head. This brought 190,000 Swiss francs in 2002. That was a lot of money back then. Okay. The one to the right just sold in 2024 for 950,000 Swiss francs with the exchange and the buyer's premium. That's $1.2 million. That's a 400% increase between these two coins. Now, I understand the one on the left has the banker's mark, but still, it's a really beautiful Eidmar, fully centered, amazing pedigree, just like this one has, because the one on the right back to 1922 just doesn't have the banker's mark and is a little clearer on the obverse, but still they're very comparable coins. And I would say Eidmars in general, if you go back to the early 2000s, a really great one, a decent one with some corrosion, was a $50,000 coin. And now they're going for $250,000. And so so has the laws, and I could have kept on bringing other examples in. We all have seen the prices go up across the board for Greek and Roman coins, especially high-powered ones. And in some cases, even the mid-range pieces, because of the slabbing market, prices have driven up. So has the laws and regulations stopped looting, and has it decreased the value of coins? No, it hasn't. It's actually increased, because what happens is anything that's pre-1970, collectors, not museums, which was what it was meant for, the pre-1970 pedigree was so that museums and institutions wouldn't buy newly looted material, because everything in their opinion is looted, right? So it's like it's legally looted, or that's the legal cutoff line, right? And so but it's not the museums that are buying these are collectors, and the collectors are paying huge prices for these things. And I can tell you back in the early 90s, when there was no internet, people in source countries didn't have access to prices like they do now. Now they can go on Coin Archives or AC Search, just like you and I. They can see what things bring, and it makes them loot more, not less, more. And so it's really short-sighted of government officials to think that these laws are actually putting a dent in changing how people handle things. Things have been looted since the ancients. If you go to the pharaoh's tombs in Egypt, like Ramses, his tomb was looted in the ancient times. Probably there was Roman gold that was from Egypt, that was from statues they melted down. Who knows? I mean, things moved around, treasures moved around, things were taken. And so, it's not like looting is a new thing. It always happens, even in the ancients. And so to say that you're going to put an end to it is short-sighted and really silly. And there is more information being lost today because of the hypocrisy of the way that the archaeologists fuel this fight. And if they would actually get their heads out of their butts, they may realize that they can do more by legalizing than to try to fight it. I hate to equate it to the drug trade, but here in the United States, We fought against marijuana for decades and decades and decades, put a lot of people in jail, and spent billions and billions and billions of dollars to have all of that change in many states in America. They're now legalizing it. They're making billions in tax dollars, and they're expunging all the records of all those people that got arrested. So instead of fighting against it, you join it. And has the world become a worse place because of it? I don't think so. People are going to smoke dope, whatever, it's their thing.
Well,
I mean,
without putting too fine a point on it, let me just say that when you can demonstrate that the system or the policy that you put in place exacerbates or makes the situation worse, then at the very least you have to try something different.
Mm-hmm.
So in this case,
let's
like, the thought of taking away that penalty might bring more stuff to light, might have more information, might bring more sunshine, which is the greatest disinfectant, all that stuff.
And also, countries across the world are broke right now, probably because of the pandemic and other factors. There is no money for digs like there was. Because of the big fight between collectors and museum and archaeologists, who have demonized collecting. Collectors are not giving money to the museums like they once did. They're not donating to museums like they once were. So there's less money to go around for doing things in illegal places where you can dig with legal consequences or legal people doing it, whether it's universities or whatever the case might be. I know people that go on digs. They actually have to pay to go on the digs. So that goes to help fund the digs, and they're just volunteers. They're not necessarily educated in how to do something. Some of them are, some of them aren't. And again, when you go to a site, most of the time you're just cleaning up stuff. You're not finding a whole lot. It's mostly just the infrastructure. You're not finding huge treasures and things like that. Because again, as far as coins go, they're not found on sites. They're found off-site. So in any case, so let's look at a country that is doing it legally. So if you want to go to the next slide, and we have the portable scheme, PAS in the United Kingdom. Let me just do this here real quick so I can see it better. All right. Bam. Okay. Yeah, so this is the Portable Antiquity Scheme, PAS, in the United Kingdom. It's managed by the British Museum, and it public focuses initiative to record archaeological finds through metal detecting. Over 1.5 million items to date, from prehistoric flints to post-medieval dress accessories, have been found. And they're all logged into a publicly accessed database, which you can go to right now if you want to, and find and see where everything is found and documented. They have 40 different find liaisons.
There you go.
Yeah, thank you. Officers across the country, which you would call once you find something. And the vision and aim is to encourage, report preservation, the best practices on how to handle it, facilitate research, build partnerships, and to support the Treasure Act of 1996. All right. And
So
if you want to go to the next slide, Mike.
They found free labor in finding this stuff, in people that are actually interested, in people that are willing to give it the reverence that it needs.
Right. Some actually in 2021 they found 1,072 reported treasure finds. In 2022, 53,490. Obviously, in 2021, they were still in the pandemic. So come out of the pandemic, 53,430 recorded finds, 1,378 treasure finds, the highest recorded treasure finds to count. And then in the same year, 1,358 treasures. 2023, 74,506 finds were done. And two of the biggest ones were in 2009, they had the Stafford Hoard in 2009, which was 3.285 million pounds. And then in 2000, there was the Winchester hoard, which was valued at 350,000 pounds. And if you look at the map there, that's from 2003 on of all the places where they found treasures. They're able to document all of this stuff because they have people helping, doing it the right way. And so if you look to the far right, you have the steps of what you do. You stop digging carefully when you find something, record the location with GPS if possible, do not remove the find if it's in context, contact your local finds liaison. If the find might be a treasure, await expert assessment. And then you either get a valuation and reward, or you get to keep it. And so the British Museum has the right to buy every single piece that's brought to them. And they will then get somebody who will give and I'm sure it's a conservative valuation, but
it's better than what they've done historically.
Right. And so I would take it even a step farther and say that, like right now, you don't have to have a license necessarily. I think in some countries you need a license to be a metal detectorist. I think that all of them should have to pay to have a license. Whatever, it's no different than a gun license or anything other license to drive, whatever. That would help generate a lot of money for the country as well. And then also you can keep it. I think that if it's over or under a certain value and you want to export it out of the country, you need to pay for an export license. I don't know if you have to pay for an export license right now, not that I could see. And so if you're able to if the British Museum doesn't want to own it, or some other group within England, and you're able to keep it, then you should have, and you want to export it out of the country, you should have to pay a license fee for that as well. That would also generate a lot of money for the country as well. I
wanted to make a point that all of this data, all of this research, particularly the sharing of all of it, that's what's important for our paleontologists, for our archaeologists. They can go back to this data the way that it's preserved. They can actually go and use this and figure it out. This is a way of bringing this stuff forward rather than completely ignoring it or sweeping it under the rug, so to speak.
Right. Now, you remember this is earlier this year, I think, or end of last year, there was a very rare coin, Republican coin, I believe, that was found in England. And they said it wasn't, it was worth 100,000 pounds and it wasn't allowed to leave England. So at a certain value, even if the country doesn't want to buy it, the museum doesn't want to buy it, they still are not allowing certain national treasures to leave no matter what. So they have some limitations on some degree. The other thing that's left out is that if you find something on somebody's land and it has value and you're paid out, you are supposed to share that 50-50 with the landowner where you found the piece. So this also creates a nice revenue stream for people who own property in England. Maybe they are a farmer that has a lot of land and they let people go and treasure hunt on their land and they can make some money off of it. So, I think that's good for local communities where these people live, and maybe they end up getting a good find and making good money, and then they're going to buy things in their local areas. So again, all of this is really rich information for the country, for archaeologists. If they find a tomb, they want the coroner to come by and to do a search of it. The archaeologists can decide, hey, we want to go and study that area more because of what was found there. They can, you have metal detectorists who take this very seriously. I know I have a lot of metal detectorists that listen to the show, and I know that they take it very seriously and they do things very properly. And so these are the kinds of people that you want looking for treasure, not black market people who don't care and will never record it, will never do the right thing because they're not allowed to do it anyway.
Well,
So
they're only in it for their own personal gain, whereas the metal detectorists are actually in it for the betterment of mankind as well as their own personal,
right.
enjoyment.
And it's just fun. It's just fun.
Sure.
And so that's why you have treasure hunters looking in the ocean for the same reason, right? Because the ocean is kind of open area, not necessarily owned by anybody unless you're close to a certain territory. And so when you find something, it can be all yours for the most part. So,
unless it's a U.S. warship.
right, exactly. Unless it's a U.S. warship.
Yeah,
Exactly. So, but this will kill the black market. I think the biggest problem that you have right now and this is why there's probably arguments against it, is that you have a lot of material that might end up coming into England illegally, and then they act like they found it there because it has this legal path forward. And so this is why you need the whole world to legalize, so that it doesn't matter, where it's found is where it's going to be found. It's going to stay there because there's a legal path to either get paid or to export it out of the country and sell it. So you need to be able to legalize it everywhere for it to work everywhere. So, I mean, obviously, if you get a specific type of material that would never end up in England, it's going to be really hard to prove, that didn't come out of there. So, but the English have also been collecting for centuries and centuries and centuries. So it's not far-fetched to think that a piece could have been in England, brought there 200-300 years ago. So, but my point is that it just needs to be done everywhere. So if you go to the next slide. So just kind of put it into comparison between the two. The economic impact of the portable antiquity scheme. So these are the positives that come out of it: museums, acquisitions, and public access, auction sales and dealer activity, heritage jobs. These are jobs that are, the liaisons or anybody who works within that system has a job. And then the tourism from the metal detecting community. So a lot of people that go to England to metal detect from this country and all over the world because they can go there and do it. So this creates a lot of great positivity and a lot of money and a lot of positive things. And it kills the black market, which is really the key, with probably 90% of the material being recorded. So now the examples between PAS versus the no PAS countries. So, so in the UK, the PAS allows for volunteer finders like metal detectors to report find legally, and the state doesn't have to fund all discovery. In source countries with no such reporting scheme, everything is either excavated officially if funds exist, or disappears into the black market. I mean, this is pretty common sense, right? The no PAS countries, many of the archaeological services operate under tight government budgets. Salaries for archaeologists are often low, and many projects rely on seasonal or grant-based work. In Greece, right. In Greece, it's chronically understaffed. In Italy, the system has struggled with budget cuts since the 2008 financial crisis. And in Egypt, the Supreme Council of Antiquities has been fluctuating finding depending on political conditions and tourism revenue. So, it just goes to show really how important it is to really legalize. And it's pretty much, in my opinion, it's a very easy solution, and they should stop treating this stuff like it's only meant for archaeologists to pull it out of the ground, which it's not. And the only way this stuff is going to be found is if you get the help from the public, which you don't have to pay them a penny for. And it's going to generate all kinds of money for. I mean, some people say the antiquity trade could be as much as $1 billion annually. It might be less than that. It doesn't really matter. It's still it's a paid for system within. And the best part is that the archaeologists get all of the help from the community and the information. There's even some countries I've looked into where metal detectors actually have to go through a class or have to have a certification on how to metal detect in that country based on the rules of the way the archaeologists want them to search. So, there's all kinds of things you can do. You can, obviously in England, it's a little bit more loose, but in say Italy or Greece or Turkey or Bulgaria or Egypt, maybe you have tighter restrictions on who can metal detect, and they have to go through a certain amount of certificates to be able to do it properly. So, which then they can work hand in hand.
Background checks, anything you need.
Right. Right. And because you also don't want to have the black market people go, oh, okay, I'm going to go legal now.
Right.
You know, if they have if they're a known trafficker, they shouldn't be allowed because they may cut corners, right? This is part of the problem in Israel right now, is that there was a lot of people in Israel, a lot of Arabs that were actually finding really important pieces of Judaica or other things that the museum in Israel would have bought or taken, and they wanted to bypass that, and so they were illegally sending it out of the country and not getting export. And so now in Israel, you have to have it has to have been known to be in a collection for X amount of years to be able to get a license. Not as easy as it once was. So even in Israel, it started to cut off, and that was partly because what happened maybe 5-10 years ago, the guy who started the Living Bible Museum in Washington, D.C., who owns Hobby Lobby, he was dealing directly with the Arabs and other families in Israel, and they were illegally exporting material out of Israel and putting in calling it furniture and other things, and not saying that they were archaeological items. And they got caught. The Hobby Lobby owner got a $4 million fine and said, don't do it ever again. And the families that were doing it in Israel all got arrested. And they tried to cut down the trade completely. And then the Israeli dealers came about and said, no, you can't do this. This is good for tourism, because there's all these stores, if you've been to Israel, in the King David Hotel and other places where they actually sell antiquities and ancient coins. And so they fought it and they won, but there's still restrictions under what they can export now. So and so it's it doesn't work perfectly, but again, this is why you need to have it completely legalized and have a pathway for it to move easily out of the country, because most of the stuff that is found is not national treasures. Most of the stuff, I can tell you, is rejected by the museum. They don't want anything to do with it, but they still want the information, right, of where it was found. And so and we all know that from all of us that collect ancient coins and antiquities, that this is how we make the culture live on. This actually is, I mean, I had a client who owned a sarcophagus, and he ended up he ran one of the largest power companies in the USA, and he actually financed the King Tut, got his company to finance the King Tut exhibit to come to the Field Museum in 2006. So without him collecting Egyptian antiquities, that would have never happened. So sometimes the wealthy, you might say, oh, it's a wealthy problem. Well, not always. Sometimes that wealthy person will do something really good. And how many people did he change? A kid who went to go see the King Tut exhibit at the Field Museum in 2006, maybe they became an archaeologist. Maybe they went into the arts. There's all kinds of positive things that come out of collecting. All museums in the world were started from collectors. If you go back to the 19th century in America, they were all started by collectors, and all of their beginning collections were all from collectors. You might say, well, they raped and stole and took from source countries. No, it was just that it was much more open. The money being paid for these things were not as high as they once were, and yes, there was a lot of greasing of the wheels and things like that back in that day, but it wasn't like they were going in and just stealing the stuff. They had the right, whether they did it through payoffs, whatever the case might be, the country, individuals made deals with these people. You know, Lord Elgin didn't go and just steal the Elgin marbles from the Parthenon. He got an okay from the Turks, the Ottomans, who were actually running the country at the time. And they'd say, well, they weren't the Greeks. Well, okay, they weren't the Greeks, but the Greeks weren't running the country at the time. So it's whoever's running the country, that's who you did the deal with. So it's not like they were stolen per se. It's just that he did a deal with the country that was in power at the time. You can also say a lot of this stuff has survived because countries outside of the source countries have that material there. And also, I have to make the argument that most museums are filled up right now. They have too much stuff, so much stuff that they only put out 10% of what they have or less. And so the rest of it all just sits in the back storerooms, which no one other than archaeologists or people within the museum industry will ever see. And so I think that's part of why you see this big cutoff of museums not wanting things to leave source countries now, because they say, well, we have enough, so we want to make sure everything is recorded now. Well, they didn't care about that 100 years ago. because their museums were empty.
Their
So
tune
now
is
that their
changed.
museums are full, now that their museums are full, they're completely different. So
But I want to say
think
this.
that's hypocritical.
I want to say this. It is very rare where you look at something and you can clearly see a benefit to humankind.
Right.
You know, you can clearly see that. If that's the case, then I think you do that every time.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, and also a lot of source countries, you know, in Bulgaria and other places, there's dirty players in the government themselves. It's not always cut and dry of who's actually doing the looting. So there's people making money, and sometimes it can be at the government level. Not always, but I think that does definitely happen, especially at the local level. And
but the information is important to us as a people, rather than, you know, not forget the objects for a couple of minutes. It's just look at, you know, the information. We are now realizing how important information is in the information age, right? So let's value it for what it is.
And I can tell you, I have syllogies going back to the 1930s and 20s where, you know, you had the archaeologist, you had the museum curators, you had the collector, and you had the smugglers or the diggers at the time, which weren't really called smugglers. They were just called dealers that were set up in source countries. And they all worked together. They all shared the information. If you go, there's a whole series on coin hoards. There's the books Coin Hoards that's put out, you know, that you can look up when hoards were found, and they were recorded and they were studied, and then they were released into the market. And so none of that is happening now. So, you know, you hear about there's a hoard of possible coins found here. Well, how many coins are there? Well, we don't know. Well, where were they found? We think here. You know, it's all hearsay. Nobody knows. And all that was being recorded before. And so all this information is being lost. The values of these things are going higher and higher because of the laws. In fact, I would have to say, if you go back to the gold Eidmar, if Richard Beale hadn't faked the pedigree, he would have sold that coin and never gotten caught as selling looted material, because he only got caught because he faked the pedigree. And so why did he fake the pedigree? Because he was greedy, right? Well, he was greedy, but he knew that anything that had a pre-1970 pedigree is going to bring 20 to 30% more, that's the truth.
At that level, that's a lot.
Right. And so he did it so that he could get that coin selling for $4.2 million. If there was a legal path, okay, maybe that coin, if it was found, supposedly it was found in Greece, and if it was found in Greece, it probably would have just been bought by the Greek government at the time for fair market price. But maybe the fair market price may have been $1 million to them, okay, but it would have been recorded and reported. So that means that the gold Eidmar with the hole, maybe that only goes for 700,000 now instead of 2.2 million. So you want to lower the prices of things, legalize it, because that's going to keep people from doing the wrong thing. It's going to keep the prices down. The reason prices are being paid for so much is because of the way it's being run right now. And it's not working. It's not working. And so
this system is definitely not working.
It's not working. So, you know, and you can throw all the laws you want against Westerners, and okay, stop us from collecting. You think the Chinese or the Arab countries are going to stop collecting? No, the Arabs are building museums so that when oil runs out, that everybody will want to go do tourism in the oil countries, and they're filling their museums with stuff that Westerners want to see. And so, you know, it's you know, and you think they care? You know what happens in some of these countries? They're not part of the EU. They don't care. You know, they beat to their own drum. They don't care. So, you know, unless you're gonna get the whole world on board, forget about it. So, anyways, so that's my take. I got the pulpit to be able to do this, and so, you know,
I was going to say,
nobody will ever listen, but
your soapbox is ready, sir.
Yeah. So that's going to bring us to our pearl of wisdom. Mike, what's our pearl of wisdom today?
Our pearl of wisdom today is sometimes you have to kiss a lot of frogs. So Coin collecting is an experience, and as the depth of your personal experience grows, your knowledge and enjoyment generally does as well. So if you look at a lot of coins before you buy, then you will tend to know what the right coin is for you. That's the thing is, yes, you can go with what the experts say. You can have a dealer, help you buy a coin or advise you on which coin might be a better value or what you're looking for in that coin. But at the end of the day, it comes down to what your enjoyment is. And for you to be able to know what it is that you want in a coin, you're going to have to see as many examples as you can.
Mhm.
So don't
Yeah, I
worry
mean, you
about
can
it may not be the nicest examples.
you
Just
can
look
cut
at all.
out you can cut out some of the the mistakes by working with a dealer that you could trust that does a good job for you. I do a lot of auction representation for clients, and who don't want to mess up and just want some extra feedback on how they should bid or if they should bid. So I'm not the only dealer in the world. There's other dealers in your area that are plenty good and you can get a recommendation from. um, I didn't talk about it. We'll probably in the next episode we'll talk about NAC. NAC has an amazing auction coming up, incredible. And so for Greek, and it's a smaller catalog, but some of the finest things that have come to market in a long time. And so I'm actually going to Switzerland for that sale because I've got a lot of high-powered clients that want me to bid in it for them. And so, when you're bidding at those levels, you don't want to make a big mistake. So it's always good to have a representative help you. But there's a lot of people out there. My sister does auction representation as well. And I know Ed Waddell does auction representation. There's quite a few dealers out there that you can trust that know the market well and know the inside and outside of it. So, get some recommendations or just teach yourself. I have clients that bid in all kinds of auctions. They might get my opinion, but I don't represent them. They'll just say, what do you think? And I'll just tell them verbally really quick. And I'm not wasting my time necessarily. But I don't mind if they do it every once in a while, not constantly. I don't mind doing it for them. But, but yeah, they have to kiss some frogs along the way. And as long as you can minimize your mistakes, you're going to be fine. And the beauty is you can always resell. So
Right.
it's not like it's a one-sided thing, So you just
If the
don't want
coin
to mess
was
up
attractive
terribly.
enough for you to buy it the first time, it should be attractive enough for somebody else to buy it. Now the question is how will you do on it? Well, that depends on how smart you were when you bought it. But in the end, you're going to learn from all the experiences, and then you're going to be able to look at the go, oh yeah, that one it just does okay. You can be more discerning. You can become more
like the Sybaris coin that we talked about earlier, the Doofus, non-Doofus, whatever you want to call it. I would have probably advised not to buy that coin because it was broken, or at least bid really cheap on it.
Or
I don't think I would have advised. Yeah, I would have never advised somebody to pay $12,000 for that coin. So, and I, that's the other thing you have to be careful with. Some people that may represent you, they just want to get their commission. I don't care about that. Sometimes, I just want to not mess up. So, because I want to make sure that I keep the relationship going. I don't want to just
that's the thing. It's about more than one sale. That's the point.
Right. Yeah, I'm working on 5% commission on the buyer's fees, and it's only if I'm or on the hammer price, and I only get paid if it's successful. I'll be doing research for clients for several weeks in some cases for big auctions, and if I don't win something for them, I don't get anything. But they learn, I learn. It's the one advantage I have by doing this all the time is that I can see the fluctuations happening in the market. And so I can, my dad will show me a coin that I just bid for somebody in auction several times, and he'll put it at some price, and I'll be like, that's too cheap, or I'll say that's too much. The prices have come down, and I have that view because I'm constantly looking at the auctions for clients and for myself, for the company, I should say. So so it really does help you with valuations. And a lot of the collectors who are hyper focused on one area, since I'm not, they may have a better understanding of the coins that have come up and the prices that have been paid better than I do, because they're so hyper focused in that one area. Whereas I'm taking it on a case by case basis, and some of it I remember and some of it I don't. So there's certain collectors of Roman Republic. They'll be like Phil Davis. He'll say, "Oh yeah, that coin's come up 4 times in the last 10 years." He knows that stuff because that's his area of expertise. So so it's just a matter of just knowing the market, knowing what's come up, knowing, it's kind of like playing cards, right? You have to, like, if it's a really rare coin, let's say there's only like 6 known or 10 known, but that 6 of those coins are in collections that'll never come onto the market ever again because those clients are billionaires and they're never going to sell. Right. Or they went to museums. Now those things are out of, right. So those coins are now out of play. So any coin that comes up after that, you won't have another chance. So you have to know that information going in. And that's not always the case. Now, okay, that's at the upper level, right? But that's still important information to know. No different than if you're playing blackjack and that this many aces came out and you're counting cards, right? Yep. It's the same thing, because guess what? Auction is gambling.
The odds of another one coming up will affect the value of this current one.
Right.
Excuse me.
Right. Like the gold Eidmar with the hole. I know another one's not going to come up ever again unless it's a new find, because there's no other ones recorded. So it would have to be a new find. And so
while you brought up the gold Eidmar, I started out with you almost 6 years ago now. It's a little over 5 years. And I like to bust Aaron's nuts. I really do. I just like to bust his stones. And so I started calling you America's Underbidder. I think you remember that. Oh, yeah. And it was like, not as just kind of, but here's the thing is, the more I think about that, that's really not such a slap. It's really more of I know where the limit is. We went to it. We decided, no, that's actually a badge of honor.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of good stories to tell, but not a lot of monetary gain behind it. I've won some very big coins, but I've also, on the 2 most expensive coins ever to sell, I was the underbidder on both. I was the underbidder on the gold Eidmar that went back to Roma, that went back to Greece. I didn't make anything, and I was the underbidder on the facing Pantikapaean that broke it back. Right. And so I was the reason why both valuations got to where they were. And so I can say I was the underbidder on the 2 most expensive ancient coins ever to sell, breaking the record twice, but I have nothing to show for it but a good story.
And you made nothing on it.
Nothing. Nothing.
Anyways,
a good story. Anyway. Well, 69 in the bag.
69 is in the bag.
So 70 is going to be a big one.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
75 should be also a celebration of sorts.
Yeah, I suppose. So, 70 we can go, hurrah! And 75 we can go, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's it. So, if you can, like, subscribe, and share. We are going to comment. It's like we just really want to hear from you. We want to help. We want to help you learn. I hate to admit it, but for somebody who knew nothing about ancient coins, 2.5 years ago when we started this, I'm actually starting to learn some stuff, and it's like it's all there. So if you want to go back and learn ancient coins with me, you go back to episode 1, start watching it from there. But don't forget to check in the next episode so you can stay current and see what's going on. You got anything else for them, Aaron? They have got a big meaty episode here. So thank you to everybody who helps make this possible. Thanks to the fine people at Harlan J. Berk. And thank you, Aaron. Thank you, me. And we will see you next time on the episode 70 of the Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Berk.
Thanks for listening to the Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Berk. We'll return with another episode soon. Meantime, you can join our private group on Facebook. Just go to facebook.com and search the Groups tab for Ancient Coin Podcast discussion group and ask to join. There you can become part of our community, where we share and discuss ancient coins, as well as the show, the ancient coin market, auctions, or just to give our own opinions on things in order to learn together. Join Aaron and Mike again soon for the next episode of the Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Berk.